and welcome to the Farmer Supply Association Agri Report. I'm Randy Klepechka, agronomist with Farmer Supply Association. We're taping on October 17th this month. The harvest is still ongoing. When I came to Newport to tape, I live in Jonesboro, went the Harrisburg route, went to Harrisburg to a meeting, and then came, 14 all the way to Newport. And still, some of all the crops really in the field, I saw quite a bit of beans, some rice still in the field, even a field or two of corn. So, we're still got a decent amount of harvest to go, but it's ongoing. It's really been a strange harvest season. We've had a lot of really good days, but some really bad weather in between that. You look at the first, all the way till about September the 12th, we really had good harvest weather. A lot of clear weather, no rain, just excellent harvest weather. Really, the entire month of October has been good harvest weather. No rain the entire month of October yet. It looks like we've got close to 2 weeks without any in the forecast. So, some great harvest weather. But in between that was not good. We had the remnants of 2 hurricanes come through here, and the first one was Francine that came through. We had rain interspersed between the 12th of September all the way to the 16th of September, up to 10 inches in some places, especially you get north of Wiener there and some other areas, around 10 inches of rainfall or so with wind. I remember that one night the wind was really blowing strong that whole night, and you knew it was not good. So that was tough on us. We had the remnants of Helene come through. That was between the 27th and 30th of September. Lesser amounts of rain with that one. A lot of people around 2 inches, anywhere, even some less than that. An inch and a half to 3 inches, I guess, over much of the area. So lesser amounts, not quite the wind damage that we saw with Francine, but still, not good for harvest. So, those 2 events have really caused a lot of problems, a lot of lodging with all crops really, but primarily we worry about the rice, but some corn laid down, some beans partially laid down as well. So just some tough conditions that really hampered harvest and are still hampering it because we're still feeling the effects of all that. So it's been again a strange harvest season, but if we can get the rest of this month like the forecast looks like we've got another 10-12 days at least, maybe we'll have most of this thing out of here and get this year behind us. A couple of topics I want to hit on this month. One is the pre-emergence ryegrass control. The other will be wheat planting. These topics don't necessarily affect as wide a spectrum of people as rice and soybean production do, but they do hit several, and are very important to those growers who have these situations. So I want to hit on those right now. It's very timely, I think. First, we're going to talk about ryegrass control. Ryegrass has just become increasingly worse over the last several years. I think everybody says it started with the highway department seeding the roads, the sides of those highways, but it's just spread into fields and spread all over the place. Last spring when I was walking fields, I was noticing, as I drive down berms or field roads or edges of fields, there was just a lot of ryegrass that was headed out going to seed. And I just thought at the time, I said, this is, 2024 into the spring of 2025 is probably going to be more ryegrass than we've ever seen before. So, keep that in mind and remember those berms and what those sides of those fields and what they looked like last year, because it was pretty bad in places. So we've got a heck of a seed bank out there, I think. If we let those come up and we don't try to do anything before that, what we're going to end up is a tough burn down situation next spring. We always get into that. That ryegrass is not real noticeable when it's small, and you think, well, I don't have much of a problem. And then it gets bigger, and then it gets to the point that you can't control it anymore. We've got, a couple of options for burn down, and neither one of them are going to be very effective, especially because, as I mentioned, that ryegrass is going to be pretty big, and often it's hard to spray that time of year because it's wet, but that'll be the situation we get into in some of these fields if we don't try to do something earlier than that. Our burn downs or clethodim, or the active ingredient in Select in Section 3, it can be pretty effective, especially if we get it when it's pretty small. But like I said, that stuff is really big when we spray it, and we don't get the effectiveness we could if we would spray it earlier. So that's a problem with waiting to burn down. Gramoxone's the other option, and usually you're not going to get total control out of gramoxone. You'll get good burn down with it. but usually that thing is going to regrow, to an extent. So, we don't have, again, real good burn down options. So we really need to be looking at, just like we talk about with rice all the time, we need to try to keep, that ryegrass from ever emerging is what we need to do. And now's the time to be thinking about that. Some good options out there. We can really get good control if we get these out and get them activated, which is always, the critical issue with any residual herbicides, getting them activated. But if you're going to be growing beans or corn next year, then you have some good options, metolachlor or any of those metolachlor containing products like Dual, Boundary, several generics out there. So all those can be very good if activated. Zidua is also right in that category of excellent control. Zidua or Anthem Flex, both of those can do very good jobs of keeping this ryegrass from ever coming up. So think about those. If you're going to be planting rice next year, then your only option is Command, because there's a possibility that metolachlor or Zidua could carry over into next spring and could affect that emerging rice. So again, if you're going to have rice next year, Command is your only option. If you're going to be having beans or corn next year, then metolachlor, something like Dual, Boundary, Zidua, Anthem Flex, generics, and things like that are your options. If you've already got ryegrass emerged when you try to apply these, and you need to add some clethodim or some paraquat in there to try to burn those down, because if they're already up, you need to try to get rid of them then, or they're going to get big before next spring. Timing of these, and we're getting right into that window now. Late October, really into early November is my favorite time to do this. Really, the weather's going to dictate when you do this. Of course, with residuals, you've got to get a rainfall to get them activated. So you're looking at the forecast right now. The next rain I see in any forecast I'm looking at is around the 29th or 30th of October. That's on, I think, AccuWeather that goes that far out there, and that's what they're looking at right now, is a pretty decent rainfall, possibly in that 29th or 30th of October time frame. But that's 2 weeks out, so that could change between now and then. But try to get it out in front of an activating rain. There's no point in putting it out there, too much earlier than that, because you could get some breakdown of the herbicide and everything, and it's not going to get activated. So kind of look for that first activating rainfall that's in the forecast, and get it out in front of that. No point in getting out before that. So again, let the weather dictate when you make these applications. Another thing to consider, I think, this is going to work a lot better where you've worked the ground and you've got a stale seedbed situation. It's going to be better there, and I'm not saying you can't get activity in other situations, but in other situations you're going to have some stubble there and things like that, and it's going to be harder for that herbicide to uniformly get on the ground and get activated. So again, you can probably get some activity that way, and if I've got a bad ryegrass problem, I'm probably still going to think about doing something, even if it's not that smooth stale seed bed. But again, the stale seed bed that's been worked up is going to be your best situation. So again, this is pre-emerge ryegrass control. If you've had problems the last few years and they've been increasingly worse, and a lot of times they're just on the edges of the field, and you might just spray a few passes on the edge and see how that does for you. I don't know that you necessarily have to spray whole fields if you know that's been primarily contained to the edges in your field. Well, think about doing something like that. But I really believe you need to think about doing something in those situations, or it's going to get to the point you're going to, because it's going to become an automatic part of our program if we don't start doing something, because it's becoming more and more of a problem. So again, keep that in mind. One other thing I want to talk about this month is wheat planting. And we don't have a lot of wheat in our area, but for the growers that grow wheat, it's a big part of their program. We've got generally two camps there. We've got the guys that have the wheat, soybean, corn rotation. They really like that. It's a good rotation, for those farmers. So they like that wheat in that rotation. We've got some guys that don't have irrigation, just dry land, and they like growing wheat because, obviously it's going to do better in a dry land situation than going out there and planting beans or something. So that's another situation where we're going to have some wheat planted. I've had a couple of calls this week about wheat planting, and so we're going to have some wheat. It's just not going to be a huge acreage, just like usual. Again, it'll be the usual growers. Planting dates, we're getting right into that window. I like, about the 10th of October all the way through early November, and we're right in that window right now. But again, as I mentioned earlier, with that herbicide activation, We don't have any moisture in a lot of cases right now, especially if the fields have been worked up this fall. Then I looked at some here just south of Newport earlier today that's going to go in wheat, and there's no moisture there at all. So, there's no point in planting it right now. Let's just wait, until it looks like we got a better chance of getting that moisture, or after we get it, just need some moisture, or at least, the pretty sure hope that we're going to have some moisture pretty quick. So, keep that in mind. But again, we're into that time frame we need to plant it, but we just don't have the moisture right now to do it. Seeding rates, university says 26 seed per square foot. Obviously seed size is going to vary. One of these guys I'm talking about that's going to plant this wheat this year, he told me his seed size, and it comes to right at about 87 pounds for him. And so a general rule of thumb is about 90 pounds per acre if you're trying to figure pounds per acre. But again, 26 seed per square foot will get you there. Fertilize, if you have a soil test, obviously go with a soil test. A lot of times you're going to want, if you're going to double crop beans, you want to go ahead and probably put the fertilize for both crops out there. But if you're just trying to fertilize for wheat, I think I always want to have some phosphorus out there, and I generally go 100 pounds of phosphorus. It's kind of my rule of thumb, if I'm just wanting to bare bones approach and get some fertilizer out there. As far as nitrogen, unless you're planting late or you're planting, after rice, which I don't know if we have anybody around here planting behind rice anymore, then you can really get by without the nitrogen. So unless you're getting, well up into November and you need that nitrogen for some extra tillering, then consider it there. But otherwise, maybe just get, 100 pounds of phosphorus or something like that out there for fertility. Weed control, again, just like we talked about the situations where we're talking about for next year. Well, if you're planting wheat this year, then ryegrass is, you've got ryegrass, and you need to try to get a residual out there to take care of it as well. And it needs to be a delayed pre-application. Your wheat needs to be germinated and spiking maybe, but at least for sure germinated and visibly germinated before you make these applications. Zidua or Anthem Flex are your go-to materials. So again, delayed pre-application after your wheat is germinating, get them out there as soon as you can and get them activated. That way you can control that ryegrass and also control several other weeds as well. So that's where we're at right now, trying to finish this harvest up, get some pre's out there for ryegrass if the weather will let us, and then get some wheat planted if you're going to plant some wheat. So until next month, if you have any questions, call me through Farmer Supply Association. And this has been Randy Kopechka with your Farmer Supply Association Agri Report for October.